Hey YouTube, my name's Soraya. I am a board certified family medicine physician, and this is going to be a story time about my match week experience. Hey YouTube, it's Sunday, March 9th. March means that it's match season, match week, match day, all of that is quickly on the horizon. If you are in healthcare, match day is essentially the day in healthcare that medical students or medical graduates will find out where they matched to become a doctor. Especially for US medical students, when we're applying to get into residency, which is after medical school, we generally have to have this match system. In the match system, you sign up a list of all the programs that you've rotated with or done interviews with and that said they're interested in you, and you will rank them based off of your preference. They will rank their list of potential residents or future residents based off of their preferences, and hopefully all of the names and programs and everything matches up. So that's why it's called the match. It can be a very nerve-wracking day. It's essentially a week-long process. That first day is the day that you find out you've matched, so you got a program. You don't find out where, which program, or what specialty if you applied to multiple specialties until the end of that week on the Friday. So you find out that you matched on Monday, and then you find out where you matched, what city, what state, all of that on the Friday. This video will be essentially a story time, my very first story time on here. Actually, no, I think it's gonna be my second, but essentially this will be my very first story time about my match week experience. Okay, so where do I start? My match week experience was pretty interesting. I guess we should start kind of towards the end of medical schools. I actually graduated the year before I matched. I decided not to match or apply to the match or apply to residency in my final year of med school. That's my fourth year, because I took one of the step exams a little bit later so that I could get a more optimal experience. I just did not feel ready to take it in time for the projected match season. So I took a little bit more time, and that is okay. What ended up happening though in my fourth year is that I did not recognize how limiting it would be, the fact that I was going to be a visa applicant and a couple other things that I just needed. I didn't put in enough face time in enough programs to essentially increase my chances of matching. So I graduated medical school, and then I went on to start studying for step 3 and applying to the match for the following year. What ended up happening though was the most nerve-wracking experience of my life. So match, the whole ERAS system, which is the application online computer program system that we as medical students use to apply to the match, we all literally apply to all the programs, set up all of our application, we upload our resume, all of that stuff online from like September, October. And then there's a specific day when it all gets uploaded to and released to all the programs. Once the programs get it, a lot of them do not re-download if there are any updates. So you want your entire application to be updated on that day. Now, I did upload like all my stuff and it got released to the programs. And essentially a lot of these programs were programs I had never had any FaceTime with, unfortunately. And then I was an international medical school graduate. So with all that said and done, you know, once you apply and your application is released to these programs, you wait for the interview options and applications to start rolling in. Like, programs start inviting the students that they want or the applicants that they want for interviews to see if they can be a good candidate for their program. Now, it was like a month in and I hadn't gotten any interviews. And I will be honest, I started to panic because I was getting stories of other people who were getting interview invites and I was not getting any. And then I was also now a non-traditional student. I had already graduated. I didn't know a lot of the programs that I was applying to because I didn't rotate with them. And I was just very worried. So essentially, I started to think that this was not going to happen for me. And then I was going to have to reapply for the next year. And I paid like $5,000 for my ERAS application. It was very expensive. One of the things that a lot of people don't know is that for international medical students, we pay a lot more money for these applications than everyone else. And there's a whole lot surrounding that, but I digress. So here I was, $5,000 more in debt on top of everything else and not getting any applications. I decided to reach out to someone that I knew, one of the residents who I knew that was currently at one of the programs that I had rotated with. And what's funny is I didn't actually rotate with that program. I was rotating in their ER program, and I actually wanted to match into family medicine. And their family medicine program was the one that was actually accepting visa applicants. So someone introduced me to the assistant program director from that program, and I went in to try to sit in on one of their grand rounds just to kind of have FaceTime and introduce myself to people back when I was a med student. And doing that, they kept inviting me back because they said I was taking part, I was giving good answers, I was very willing to work. Like, they invited me to shadow at their clinic and all of this stuff that was really nice of them. So push comes to shove, I finished with that rotation. It's time for me to leave. I had done whatever FaceTime I could. It was literally maybe a total of 48 hours that I had done with that program. You know, and in my mind, I'm like, that's not going to be enough. They will never remember me. Like, I'm as good as done with them, whatever. So I left. I went on to graduate and I was studying for step 3, paid my $5,000 for my ERAS application, very expensive. The release date went on in September, where all of your application gets uploaded onto the system. And essentially you just wait for the invites for interviews to start rolling in. Well, 2 weeks passed, 4 weeks passed, 6 weeks passed, and I was getting no interviews. So panic started to set in. At that time, I was working as a telemedicine assistant after having graduated medical school a few months earlier, and knowing that I was a non-traditional student and no interviews were coming in, and a lot of these programs didn't essentially know me like face to face because I hadn't been able to rotate with them, I was worried that this was not going to happen for me and I was going to have to spend a whole lot of money to do this all over again. I started to panic and I decided to reach out to someone that I knew that I had met while I was kind of putting in FaceTime with that program the year before. I sent that person a message and they were like, oh, that's so weird that they didn't message you or you didn't get the invite because they said they wanted you and they were really interested in your application or you as a potential resident, and they just didn't see your application. So I was like, well, I certainly put it in there. And I started rechecking my, application to make sure I hadn't missed a program that I wanted to, put in there, but it was in there. A week or two later, the invite came in. Once the invite came in, I scheduled my interview date. It was in Michigan, and I ended up having to make the drive of 4 hours with my mom in my car on a very snowy night to try to get to this interview. Did my interview, never got any more invites. Like, I got a couple wait list for interviews, but I never got any others. I had one interview. So I essentially was, panicking at that point because the chances of matching with only one interview were slim, or at least that's what we're always told. And I was like, this is not going to happen. My parents, kept encouraging me to keep the faith. And so I did. I was like, you know what? If I give up on myself before everyone else gives up on me, then, how can I count on anyone else to have faith in me if I don't have faith in myself? Rank day comes around. I put in my rank. It's one program. Who cares? It wasn't a very difficult decision to make. Okay. And then March comes around. Literally the Friday before match day is supposed to happen. Like I said, I was working as a telemedicine assistant. So telemedicine assistant means I was the doctor, meaning the physician assistant, the medical assistant who was on site seeing the patient, and my attending physician would come up on a big screen. I would see the patient, triage them, do the vitals, do their history, do their physical exam, really make an assessment and plan, and essentially report to my attending physician. And that is basically what an intern does most of the time. So I was essentially doing an internship kind of thing for outpatient family medicine at that time. But at that time, COVID pandemic hit the fan. I had a patient come in that Friday morning before a match, and they were coughing a lot. And there was a little bit of a rumbling in the air about some potential upper respiratory illness that was taking people out, and we all needed to be careful and ask about travel and all of this. It was all very new and no one knew what was going on. So the patient comes in and they're coughing, and they are essentially very raspy, very short of breath, significant upper respiratory symptoms. And essentially the patient ended up testing positive for COVID. So I had to quarantine myself, had to go home right then and there. It was a whole emergent situation. I went home, locked myself in my parents' guest bedroom that had a bathroom attached, and I couldn't talk to anyone for the entire weekend. The weekend right before match day. So I was a ball of nerves and just anxiety, thinking, wow, is this a bad kind of setup for how the match day is gonna go, and then I'm gonna have to go unmatched and be in my room by myself. It was a whole, I started to spiral. And at the end of the day on Friday night, I remember telling myself, there's nothing else that I can do. I have literally done everything. I've taken all the tests and passed. I have applied to all the programs. I sent all the thank you messages and reach outs. I did all of the things that I could do. There's essentially nothing else that I could do but wait and have faith. So that's what I did. I ate food, slept, watched television, everything. That felt like the longest 48 hours of life, waiting for Monday morning at 9 a.m. So fast forward, Monday morning, 7 o'clock, I wake up, I take a shower, I pray, I have my devotion, and my heart is just racing. I can feel my heart racing faster and faster with anticipation of this 9 o'clock deadline. That's when it comes up on ERAS. So I essentially sit there by 8:55, I had been showered and waiting, and I just kept refreshing the page, and obviously trying not to think the worst. And by 8:59 and 30 seconds, I was refreshing. And then at 9 o'clock, I refreshed and it said, I matched. And I sat there for 30 seconds just in awe, in complete awe of the miracle that is God. Because how I had one program and That's all it took. It only takes one program to believe in you, one program to match, one program to like you and like your work ethic and like what you have to offer, one program to rank with you or rank your name. That's all it takes. And that's what worked out for me. Obviously, the rest of the week was somewhat anticlimactic because I only had ranked one program. So I knew where I was going, what program, which city, which state, everything. So I could quickly get the ball rolling on like apartments and all of that stuff. But I remember I was quarantined, so I couldn't really be with anyone. But my mom, who at the time was undergoing some cancer treatment, so she was significantly immunosuppressed, ran into the room at 9:01 and said, "What happened?" And I said, "Mom, I matched." And my dad was not home at the time, and we grabbed each other in masks and hugged and jumped around in a circle in my room for like 30 seconds. And we cried. And then she said, okay. And then she left. And that was my match day. And I will be honest, that was the best day, the best it could have possibly been, because I remember all the hard work that my parents put into getting me to that place. So having it all work out the way it did, was unfortunate with COVID, but the best it could possibly be. And then eventually my COVID test ended up being negative. So it was back in the day when COVID tests, it was like early COVID. So COVID tests then were like taking 72 hours to come out. So my COVID test ended up coming back negative. So thankfully my mom was safe, but she was willing to take the risk at the time, which if her oncologist heard this right now, I don't think they'd be too happy with us. But that was my match day, and I went on to match into a family medicine program. I am now a family medicine attending, and I love being a family medicine attending. I think that match day can be a ball of emotions for a lot of people. And I just want to remind somebody, I know that this is like probably the most boring story time ever, but I want to remind somebody that it only takes one. It really only takes one program to believe in you. And for any program directors out there, like, you are someone's dream. You are the difference between someone making it and someone not making it. And I am aware and know people who have unfortunately taken their own lives because of this whole match situation. And I am just so happy that my situation was not that. And I'm hoping that this video will remind someone, don't give up on yourself before everyone else does. Even after everyone else does, you owe it to yourself to believe in you, to see it through to the end, to maintain positive thinking, positive vibes, positive emotions leading up to this day, no matter how negative the outcome looks. Even if, let's say, you didn't have any options, you didn't have any interviews, so you had nothing to rank, you are not going to match with anyone because there was no one to rank. Prepare yourself for the soap. Like, I had friends who were looking at me like, at least you had one program. They had nothing. I had friends who I went through the process with who had no interviews whatsoever, and they went on to not match, and they had to soap, and they went on to not be successful in the soap in that period, but they were successful in the match the year after that. And those people are now finishing up their last year of residency. So timing is everything. Timing is the most frustrating part of it all, because you want it to happen right now. I wanted to match in my 4th year of medical school, but I didn't. I couldn't. So timing is everything. What was to be for me was that I was supposed to match as a postgraduate medical IMG student who hadn't failed any programs or failed any courses or failed any tests, but I only had one match spot, so that I could be here today as proof that all of the statistics and all of the things that they tell you are not end all be alls. They don't need to be the thing that you hang your hat on for everything, and that you are above all of these statistics and these metrics and the things that they tell us, because it's so anxiety provoking for med students. So I'm sitting here on the floor trying to encourage someone to tell you, like, don't give up on yourself, because you will make it out. There will be other alternatives. I did not want to be working as a telemedicine assistant in my, like, after I graduated med school, but it worked out. I had one program. It only took one. So I hope this helps. I'm not great at telling stories, but this story is meant to be encouraging. It's not about me at all. It's just meant to help someone who might be struggling with their med school journey. So if anything, keep faith alive, keep trusting, stay positive, and I really hope that all of you have an amazing, amazing, amazing match day. Stay healthy, guys. Bye.
But look at you. Look how far you've come. You faced your trauma.